everybody. It's 10 o'clock. We'll get started. Om. Om. गणानान्त्वा गणपतिगुं हवामहे कविं कवीनामुपमश्रवस्तमम् ज्येष्ठराजं ब्रह्मणां ब्रह्मणस्पदान शृण्वन्नोतिभिः सीदसादनम् प्रणो देवी सरस्वती वाजेभिर्वाजिनीवती धीनामविद्यवत् ॐ गणेशाय नमः ॐ सरस्वत्यै नमः ॐ श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः शुक्लांबरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये वागीशाद्या सुमनसः सर्वार्थानामुपक्रमे यं नत्वा कृतकृत्या स्युः तं नमामि गजाननम् वक्रतुण्ड महाकाय कोटिसूर्यसमप्रभ निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा सरस्वती नमस्तुभ्यं वरदे कामरूपिणे विद्यारंभं करिष्यामि सिद्धिर्भवतु मे सदा सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् ब्रह्मानन्दं परमसुखदं केवलं ज्ञानमूर्तिं द्वन्द्वातीतं गगनसदृशं तत्त्वमस्यादिलक्ष्यम् एकं नित्यं विमलमचलं सर्वधी साक्षिभूतं भावातीतं त्रिगुणरहितं सद्गुरुं तं नमामि सद्गुरुं तं नमामि श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादशङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्य केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवत् व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः समस्त जन कल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरं यस्य सन्निधिं मात्रेण सर्वे शिष्याश्च सेवकाः कर्मक्षेत्रे प्रवर्तन्ते चिन्मयं तं नमाम्यहं चिन्मयं तं नमाम्यहम् Hari Om everybody. Welcome back to our weekly Vedanta classes on Viveka Choodamani. Let's get started with our Mangala Charana Shloka. Sarva Vedanta Siddhanta Gocharam Tama Gocharam Govindam Paramanandam Sadgurum Pranatosmyaham. Last week, we started the selected verses on the topic of Vasana Chaya and the topic of Adhyasa Nivritti. Bhagavan Shankaracharya ji cautioned us for alert living, for the sadhakas to be vigilant, as the vasanas can be detrimental or pratibandha in one's spiritual progress in terms of the application of the Atma Gnana. And liberation is thinning down of the Vasana Traya. I'm using these terms because you've heard that all along. Through alert living. He said they're like the iron shackles holding us back in this jail of samsara. Karagraha, he said. As we discussed elaborately last week, so the main door of this jail is open with Agnana Nasha through Tattva Gnana. And the second stage is the Vasana Kshaya and the Adhyasa Nivritti. He gave us a beautiful example. Durganda Duta Agaru Divya Vasana. This, just like this Agaru, sandalwood, naturally it has most divine, heavenly fragrance. But when it comes in contact with water, it starts to stink. So to remove that bad odor, the wood is taken out of the water. It is rubbed and scrubbed. And in that verse, we saw Pragnati Sangharshanato Vishuddha. It starts to emanate this divine fragrance. Pratiyate Chandana Gandhavat Sputam. Same way, even though we are of the same nature as that of Atman, Antashritananda Duranta Vasana Dhuli Vilipta Paramatma Vasana. Our Paramatma Vasana is hidden. Why? Because of our stinking vasanas of our personality. Lust, greed, anger, many other emotional byproducts are providing a good coating. They're so dominant in our personality layers. What is needed? Scrubbing that with the right knowledge. By contemplating on that right knowledge, and with that flow, Shankaracharya ji is saying, just like that sandalwood emanates that divine fragrance when scrubbed, when our inner personality is also, those layers are scrubbed, it starts to emanate the divinity within us. Then we saw last week some good references from Bhagavad Gita, 16th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. 26 values we went through of the Daivi Sampatti, qualities like Abhayatvam, fearlessness, Ahimsa, non-violence, even at the thought level, Arjavam, straightforwardness, honesty. If you missed any of these, please catch up on the last week's lecture on our YouTube channel, Chinmaya Ramanam. In that, we saw what to cultivate as habits and what to discard. So, in short, currently my anatma vasanas are covering my divine fragrance. That is that Atma Vasana, Paramatma Vasana. Nityatmanisthaya tesham nashe bhati swayam sputam. By that constant contemplation, these are anatma vasanas can be removed. How? By swadhyaya, by study of the scriptures daily, contemplation, meditation, sincere devotion, selfless karma, nishkama karma, all of these. Yata yata pratyagavastitam manaha. To the extent mind becomes engaged in this inner journey, it becomes more and more introverted. Tata tatha munchati bahya vasanam. Lesser vasanas, lesser the agitations of the mind, more and more contemplation, and the self shines unhindered. Nishesha mokshe sati vasananam atmanubhutihi pratibandha shunya. Then we enter the topic of how to remove these false IDs, false identities that we carry. What is that? Anatmani Atma Buddhi, Jagati Satyatva Buddhi. Adhyasa. How to negate these false values, and we started with that sequence. Just let's quickly recap some of the ones we covered. Swatmanye vasadha stitva mano nashyati yoginah vasana nam kshayaschatah swadhyasapanayam kuru. Swatmanyeva sadastitva mano nashyati yoginah. When this mind is firmly fixed or established in that self, the mind dies. Meaning, this yogi conquers his mind. No more agitations in the mind for that yogi. And then in 278, we saw tamodvabhyam rajas sattvat sattvam shuddhena nashyati tasmat sattvam avashtabhya swadhyasapanayam kuru. The tamasic vasanas like lethargy, sleep, forgetfulness, all these can be destroyed by developing rajasic tendencies, activity based tendencies, slowly developing more and more of the sattvic tendencies will remove the rajasic tendencies, and sattva can be negated by vishuddha sattva. Depend on that. Avastabhya, to remove this adhyasa. Then in 279, prarabdham pushyati vapuhu iti nischitya nischalaha dhairyamalamvya yatnena swadhyasapanayam kuru. Knowing that this prarabdha karmas will nourish this body, be courageous, be disciplined, remain undisturbed, knowing that this body will end once these prarabdha karmas are done or exhausted. Depend on that knowledge to end this adhyasa, to end this superimposition. Swadhyasapanayam kuru. Then in 280, we saw Naham Jiva Param Brahmeti Atadvyavrutti Purvakam Vasana Vegata Prapta Swadhyasa Panayam Kuru. Firmly bringing that firm knowledge, that firm understanding that I am not this limited jiva, I am that supreme Brahman, atad vyavritti purvakam, negating all others that are not Atma, eliminating or negating, we need to remove that adhyasa. Then in 281, Shrutya yuktya svanubhutya ज्ञात्वा सार्वात्म्यमात्मनः क्वचिदाभासतः प्राप्तः स्वाध्यासापनयम् kuru. Having realized with the help of Shruti, scriptures, Yukti, logical reasoning, and Anubhuti, from our own direct experience, even if there is a slight trace of superimposition, he says, Kvachid abhasatah. We need to overcome that. So this is where we had stopped. Continuing where we had left off, we will start 282. Annadana visargabhyam Ishannasti kriya munehe. Annadana visargabhyam Ishannasti kriya munehe. Tadeka nisthaya nityam Swadhyasapanayam kuru. One more time together. Annadana visargabhyam Ishannasti kriya munehe. Tadeka nisthaya nityam Swadhyasapanayam kuru. So here he is cautioning on eating, excretion, our daily mundane things we do, meaning just focused at that level, body level. Annam means food. In the larger sense, this annam, this food means food for all the sense organs, sense objects. And visargaha is the stimuli received, the Vishaya, constantly responding to them, perceiving them, responding to them, perceiving them, responding to them with ego and its identification. He is saying, Tadeka nishtaya nityam, eka nishtaya, swadhyasapanayam kuru. Holding on from that perception and response by contemplating on that one ideal, tad eka nishtaya, develop that sense of neutrality to these external perceptions and stimuli. That is the advice given here. Moving on to 283. 283. तत्त्वमस्यादिवाक्योत्थ ब्रह्मात्मैकत्वबोधतः तत्त्वमस्यादिवाक्योत्थ ब्रह्मात्मैकत्वबोधतः ब्रह्मण्यात्मत्वदार्ढ्याय ब्रह्मण्यात्मत्वदार्ढ्याय स्वाध्यासापनयं कुरु स्वाध्यासापनयं कुरु. One more time together. तत्त्वमस्यादिवाक्योत्थ ब्रह्मात्मैकत्वबोधतः ब्रह्मण्यात्मत्वदार्ढ्याय स्वाध्यासापनयं कुरु. Brahmani Atmatattva Dardhyaya, by developing that deep confirmation, that deep experience, how from that Mahavakya Vichara, we know that Tattvam Asi, etc. These great declarations of the Upanishads, which point to that Brahma Atma Aikyatvam, which point to that oneness of Atma and Brahma. Swadhyasapanayam kuru. Deny these false impositions. So we'll do one more in this theme. 284. Aham bhavasya dehesmin nishesha vilayavadhi. Aham bhavasya dehesmin nishesha vilayavadhi. Savadhanena yuktatma swadhyasapanayam kuru. One more time together. Aham bhavasya dehesmin nishesha vilayavadhi. Savadhanena yuktatma swadhyasapanayam kuru. How long should I do this practice, sir? How long this practice should be continued? Aham bhavasya dehesmin nishesha vilayavadhi, until this identification with the body meaning body, mind, everything, is completely rooted out. That aham bhava, is rooted out. That sense of me and mine is rooted out. Savadhanena yuktatma swadhyasapanayam kuru. With attention and focus, savadhan, we need to get rid of these false identities. Now, having done this process, let's look at a couple of verses that emphasizes how we need to be vigilant on this path, on the spiritual way of life. We'll look at verse number 321. Pramado brahmanishthayam Pramado brahmanishthayam na kartavyah kadachana na kartavyah kadachana Pramado brahmanishthayam na kartavyah kadachana Pramado mrutyurityaha Bhagavan Brahmana Sutaha. One more time together. Pramado Brahmanisthayam Nakartavyah Kadachana Pramado Mrutyurityaha Bhagavan Brahmana Sutaha. Here he is emphasizing on pramada, negligence. For gnanam to become drudha, firm, for sadhaka to become from nishta to brahmanishta. This pramada, forgetfulness. Forgetting what? Forgetting our essential divinity. Here he is quoting Brahmaji's son, mind-born son, Sanat Kumaras. Here he is saying we should not be careless on this path. Pramado brahmanishtayam nakartavyah kadachana. He says this inadvertence, this pramada, mrutyurityaha bhagavan brahmanasutaha. It is equivalent to mrityu, equivalent to death, he says. This is an extract from the teaching. This Sanat Kumara, in the middle of Mahabharata, he comes and teaches Dhritarashtra. That section of Mahabharata is called Sanat Sujatiya. He calls this pramada as equivalent to death. And one more beautiful example he gives in this verse that we have to study. This is one of my favorites. Verse number 325. Lakshyachutam chetyadi chittamishata Lakshyachutam chetyadi chittamishada Bahirmukham sannipate tatastataha Bahirmukham sannipate tatastataha Pramadata prachyuta kelikandukaha Pramadata prachyuta kelikandukaha Sopana pankto patito yatha tatha Sopana pankto patito yatha tatha. One more time together. Lakshyachyutam chetyadi chittamishad bahirmukham sannipate tatah pramadata prachyutake pramadata prachyutake likandukah सोपान पंक्तौ patito yatha tatha. This one, he gives a common childhood example that all of us at some point or the other would have played like that, especially with a rubber ball. We would throw up the stairs and and it would come down and we would catch it. And as it falls, it is very unpredictable how it falls and which direction it comes and how fast it comes and all that. Those who have done that can relate to this example. Kanduka means this bouncing ball, rubber ball. When we are playing with this on the staircase, so when this ball falls down and the unpredictability of that fall, it cannot be caught quickly. It is impossible to catch sometimes because it gains momentum so quickly. Same way, he is saying, Lakshachutam chetyadi chittamishat. If our mind gets distracted on this path, small distraction, as it is falling from step to step, this ball, if we don't catch it in the first two steps, it is impossible to catch. So the mind gets distracted and starts to slip away and it turns outward. Bahirmukam sannipate tatastatah. And the fall from little gains so much momentum, it is impossible to get back on track. So he is saying, just like that rubber ball, Pramadataha Prachyutakeli Kandukaha Sopana Panktau Patito Yathatata. Just like that rubber ball, it is impossible once you start to slip away to get back on track. So be vigilant. What a beautiful verse. What a beautiful example. And so, with that single pointed focus, this constant Brahma Chintanam, through a disciplined life of vigilance, concentration, alert living, disciplined living, with that integrated mind and intellect, that continuous contemplation, nididhyasana, that single thought that I am Brahman, eliminating all other thoughts not associated with the self or anatma. See, this nididhyasana in Vedantic text, it says it can be divided into a two-stage process. In the first stage, even in Ashtanga Yoga, it comes. First stage is dharana. Dharana, concentration with effort, holding on to the mind to focus with effort on that one thought, to the exclusion of all other thoughts. We went through this when we studied Upadesha Sara. Slowly, this continuous effort over a period of time, the sadhaka will reach the second phase, dhyana. Dharana will slowly progress into dhyana. Concentration and focus are steady at this phase. It requires minimal effort. See, in Vedanta, there is a common example that is given to illustrate these two phases. In the villages, where they have cows, meaning the Goshala, etc., you know how these cows, when they are allowed to graze, they have a tendency to wander away. You know what they do? They tie this cow onto a peg or a pole, even though it is tied up. Its tendency to wander away has not gone. So when it tries to wander away, what happens? The rope holds it back. So similarly, in dhyana and dharana, our mind tends to wander away. So the mind here is tied to that post with that thought that I am Brahman. With a lot of effort in the initial phase, with that thought, in the second stage, what does this cowboy do? Cowboy, he places some fresh green fodder in front of the cow. Fresh green grass. It is enjoying. It is relishing this green, juicy grass. And if you have seen how the cow eats, right? It chews on it, it chews on it, it chews on it, and chews on it. It is so focused in that juicy grass, it forgets to wander away. Similarly, in dhyana, the mind with this fodder is so focused and engrossed in that contemplation on that Brahma Tattva, that I am Brahman, gradually over a period of time with ease, keeping this mind focused, it is not wandering away anymore. So, dharana is concentration of the mind, dhyana is contemplation. So, the two stages of nididhyasana, sustained nididhyasana, this constant contemplation over a long period of time, nirantara abhyasa, eventually deepens into what is called as samadhi. We can translate this into what we can call it as absorption, dissolution. This means fully placing the mind, and this absorption or this samadhi is broadly classified into two categories. The first is called the savikalpa samadhi, absorption with division, and nirvikalpa samadhi, absorption of the mind without division. Vikalpa means division. Let's understand a little bit. For that, we need to understand what in Vedanta we call it as Triputi or the triad. Let me explain that. See, there is the meditator, dhyatru, meditator, and he or she is meditating The meditated is called dhyeya. Dhyatru, dhyeya. The meditator and the meditated. And the third is the process of meditation. Dhyana. Dhyatru, dhyeya, and the process is dhyana. In Savikalpa Samadhi, this Triputi, what is that? Meditator, meditated, and the process of meditation. In Savikalpa Samadhi, this Triputi or this threefold distinction exists. There is that distinction between the meditator and the meditated, and this process. He knows he is in dhyana. But in Nirvikalpa, this absorption without division, the Triputi, the meditator, the meditated, and the process of meditation have culminated into complete absorption. It is dissolved. Dhyatru, dhyeya, dhyana. They all merge. The Triputi is gone. Vikalpa is gone. The distinction is gone. So this, the Vedantic texts call this as the doorway to that inner sanctorum, Nirvikalpa Samadhi. I hope you got that. So with that, let's see a few selected verses on this from Viveka Choodamani. Starting with 355. Shanto danta paramuparatah Shanti yukta samadhim. Shanto danta paramuparatah Shanti yukta samadhim. Kurvan nityam kalayati yatihi Swasya sarvatma bhavam. Tena vidyatimirjanita sadhu dagdva vikalpan. Brahma kritya nivasati sukham. Nishkriyo nirvikalpah. One more time together. Shanto dantah paramuparata kshanti yukta samadhim. Kurvan nityam kalayati yatihi swasya sarvatma bhavam. Tena vidyatimirjanita sadhu dagdva vikalpan. Brahma kritya nivasati sukham. Nishkriyo nirvikalpah. So this great soul who has reached this phase, who has realized this self, who lives in that Atma Samstitihi, in that constant bliss, Brahma Kritya Nivasati Sukham Nishkriyo Nirvikalpaha. He lives in that constant awareness of Brahman, Nishkriyaha. He does activities without any selfish prompted activities, Nirvikalpaha. His mind is ever free from modifications. It is always free from agitations. Therefore, he is, first line, Shanto Dantaha. He is Shantaha, relaxed. He is peaceful. Dantaha. He is self-controlled, disciplined. Parama uparatah. He is withdrawn from his sensory pursuits. He is more introvert. He is focused on his inner journey. All these are great prerequisites for meditation. Shanti yukta, great forbearance, meaning he is not bothered by these little pinpricks in life. Titiksha, he is devoted to perfect practice of sarvatma bhavam, kurvan nityam kalayati yatihi swasya sarvatma bhavam. The self in me is the self everywhere. That is sarvatma bhava. He lives in this blissful awareness of that Brahman. Now let us see 359 and 360 today on a similar topic. They go together. First we will do 359 examples. Sati sakto naro yati sadbhavam ekanisthaya कीटको भ्रमरं ध्यायन् भ्रमरत्वाय कल्पते. One more time together. Sati sakto naro yati sadbhavam ekanisthaya कीटको भ्रमरं ध्यायन् भ्रमरत्वाय कल्पते. We'll do chant 360 also. Kriyantara saktimapasya kitako. Kriyantara saktimapasya kitako. Dhyayan yathalim hyalibhavam ruchyate. Dhyayan yathalim hyalibhavam ruchyate. तथैव योगी परमात्मतत्त्वम् तथैव योगी परमात्मतत्त्वम् ध्यात्वा समायाति तदेकनिष्ठया ध्यात्वा समायाति तदेकनिष्ठया. One more time together. क्रियांतरासक्तिमपास्य कीटको ध्यायन् यथालिं ह्यलिभावमृच्यते तथैव योगी परमात्मतत्त्वम् ध्यात्वा समायाति तदेकनिष्ठया. So this yogi, this concentration of this yogi is compared how this kitaka, this worm, intensely is concentrating. This is Brahmara Kita Nyaya. This intensity, concentrating on that wasp, Brahmara. This is the metamorphosis example. It is transformed to become the wasp. See what happens, this wasp, it brings the worm, puts it in a hole, in a mud nest. There's a little hole in there. The wasp brings and puts it in there. There is that tiny opening, one small hole. The wasp is sitting outside. If the attention of that worm is diverted somewhere, it stings. It's so concentrated and focused. That is what he is saying. This Brahmara, this Kitaka, it is so focused, it transforms into a wasp. tataiva yogi paramatma tattvam dhyatva samayati tadeka nishtaya. The same way this yogi, meditating on this paramatma tattva, eka nishtaya, with this single pointed devotion, like that Kitaka. What a beautiful example. He transforms himself. Brahmavit Brahmaiva Bhavati. We'll do one more today. Shrute Shatagunam Vidyan Mananam Mananadapi. Shrute Shatagunam Vidyan Mananam Mananadapi. Nididhyasam Laksha Gunam Anantam Nirvikalpakam. One more time together. Shrute Shatagunam Vidyan Mananam Mananadapi. Nididhyasam Laksha Gunam Anantam Nirvikalpakam. See, the Vedantic text, as we all know, it has three-step composite method for realization, starting with active listening to the Shruti, scriptures, active listening, Shravanam, logical reasoning, Yukti, and Anubhuti, the first-hand experience. So here he is saying reflection, Mananam, is considered 100 times superior to Shravanam. What we hear, we need to reflect on it. We need to do the vichara. We need to think. Should be considered 100 times superior to Shravana. And Nididhyasanam, Lakshya Gunam, 100,000 times superior to Mananam. See the exponential effect. And Nididhyasana leading to Nirvikalpa Samadhi is Anantam, infinite times superior to the all. We will stop here and we hope and pray to our Guru Parampara to bless us in that direction on this path. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah Sarve Santu Niramayah Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhave. Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrutyorma Amrutam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnaat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om Tat Sat. May all be happy. May all be healthy. May all see auspiciousness. May none suffer. Om peace, peace, peace. With that, I'll open it up for our interactive session. So if you can stay back